We're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. This is episode number 175. I am here with Arnie, Amir, and Matt Money. Palantir has hit an all-time high today at $77.50, about 7.5% up on the day, $173.9 billion market cap. We're going to be talking about the stock action. We're going to be talking about Shyam Sankar. We're going to be talking about the Anduril partnership we had after hours, the Booz Allen Hamilton partnership we had earlier this morning, and a bunch of other things going on with Palantir. Thank you all for being here today. How are you guys doing?
I'll tell you how. I'm stressing out. Typically, you stress out when you're losing, you're down. But now I'm stressing out for overperformance. I don't complain, okay, to be to be clear. Yet it's wow, is this really happening?
Well, it seems like it's really happening. So I think we'll get started with that question because that dives into everything, and then we'll keep going from there. Matt, let's start with you. Palantir, 77.5. I mean, what's your raw reaction to it?
It's interesting to continue to see the pendulum swing, right? Because I mean, just literally within the last 18 to 24 months, we were down in the single digits. People thought this was a black box company. People were thinking there was accounting fraud. People thought that this company didn't actually do anything. The list can go on about how quote unquote useless and insignificant that this company is. And now the pendulum is really swung to make me, and I think others that are potentially out there, recognize that this really is the company that Microsoft wishes that it was today. Maybe back in the 80s, they basically have taken everything that technology and everybody have used over the past 40 years since really the invention of the PC and said, how would we start a Microsoft equivalent today, knowing what we know now? And I think that people are starting to recognize how beautiful of a business it is, how it's helping the government, the military, commercial operations. And I think the pendulum has just swung to people to recognize that this is probably the most important software company from a government perspective that we have for the United States. And so I think that that's why you have institutions absolutely piling in at the moment.
Amir, raw thoughts on 77?
Yeah, it's crazy. Shout out to our boy Dan Ives and Mariana for getting the price target right again. I think it's pretty crazy. So before the end of the year, I expect something like 85 or whatever price target. I expect them to raise it. But, it's getting kind of frothy when I just got my first hate comments on YouTube. I've never gotten it, even though I'm 50 videos in. So I made a video titled "How Wall Street Will Crash Palantir Stock," and
we'll talk about the implications of that video in a second because you did some really good work on that.
Yeah, and okay, you don't want me to quick.
Yeah, you can give me your raw thoughts on the comments, but that's a good segment. We'll talk about that right after this.
Yeah. Okay. So I just explained the SARS dynamic that we discovered last week, and people are like, "Well, go short it then." I'm like, guys, I just explained the dynamic, so we can get into that later. But I also made speaking of price target, $75. Obviously, I can't tell you a story where that makes sense from a valuation perspective, but I also made a video where I explained exactly how Mariana from Bank of America does her price targets. And essentially, it's just a method that allows you to engineer whatever price target you want without having to adjust or change your actual projections. So her actual projections for revenue, free cash flow, and stuff like that is actually really, really low. But because she uses a specific method, she can just engineer whatever price target she wants. So that video was also a lot of fun. But yeah, I think in general, 75, great. Did I see it coming? No. Did you? No. Did the viewers? Probably not. Does it stop here? I mean, what's to say that it will? It's completely detached from valuation. So why wouldn't it just keep going? I mean, it's pure momentum and hype right now. So I can definitely see it just going to right past 80 as well. But yeah,
isn't it beautiful seeing that when you study firsthand, first time valuation and stuff, you expect analysts to have these crazy complicated models to forecast the future and trying to be right But then when you actually do the work, you see professionals, you realize that is like, what number I feel inspired to put here.
Yeah, it's like this like, and like it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people from the outside, before you actually start to look into stuff, you think like these are some highly sophisticated methods, but when you actually
Proprietary
just
methods.
look at it, you're like, what are these guys doing? This is a joke. Now, it might seem like a joke, but she's been right. Like, who am I to question what she does? I mean, she's been correct. So shout out to Mariana, the GOAT.
Arnie, your raw thoughts on 77?
I'm personally very curious to know if in the history of the knives coverage, if this is the very first time that a stock reaches his target. Because we know that the knives tends to be like very optimistic. Like I never really heard him not being a positive, apart from maybe Tesla a little bit last year.
He hates
but
Snapchat.
Still,
Snapchat too. He doesn't.
Oh, but they, like very typically the knives is optimistic qualitatively, but also numerically. When I see his target prices, they're more like not futuristic, but like very ambitious targets. It's not like if he puts a target, it's typically not for like a 20% discount. It's more like there is a 50% upside and stuff. And typically it's like he is right on the direction, but not much on like the target percent. In this time, it seems like every time he puts like an ambitious price target, then the stock goes there. It puts another ambitious price target, the stock goes there. So I'm curious to see like how long this dynamic can continue, because as we discussed last week, like they need, as analysts, also to keep making the stock interesting if they want their clients to buy.
Yeah, that is fair. Okay, so let's get into it. We got a lot of different segments to discuss tonight. Amir made a pretty good video discussing the SARS issue. There's Amir right there. So I'm going to put this video in the chat. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel if he is not subscribed. The reason it says I'm not subscribed here is because this is one of my other accounts, but I'm going to subscribe with my other account anyway. So we're going to give you another subscriber there. And please make sure to check out the video. But essentially, last week on the pod, Arnie found something in the Bank of America report for SARS, which are these expenses related to employee stock grants that potentially Mariana was warning could affect the bottom line EPS growth in Q4. Amir, what did you find from your research, and kind of what are you thinking of what Palantir's net income will look like next quarter?
Yeah, I spent like 15 hours compiling every stock option, RSU, performance RSU, and SARS to try to like make sense. And by the end of the 15 hours, I was like to Arnie, like, I can't make sense of these numbers. And he's like, yeah, you can't. You just wasted 15 hours doing nothing. But in Palantir's latest Q3 filing, there is a line that says that the outstanding expenses for SPC related to SARS is something like 180 million or 190. But 120 of those can be accelerated due to market conditions. So if you know SARS, they are stock appreciation rights. Essentially, if the stock price reaches a specific target, then these are unlocked. If it doesn't, then they vanish into nothing, essentially. So at 50, they unlock, and the max appreciation for them is $20. So it's a max fully like appreciated value of $70. So as long as the stock is above $70, they are fully appreciated. Now, where did you say that the stock is trading? It's above 70, right? Meaning they are pretty much guaranteed to exercise all of them. There's no reason to hold on to them because they are fully appreciated. Like, you can't gain anything by waiting any longer, which means that Palantir will likely incur this $120 million in Q4. And that affects, yes?
Did the report explicitly said 120? Because that's the controversy. Like we were talking about this 120 Mariana wrote, but we were wondering, okay, how exactly she came out with this 120?
Yeah, it says 119.7.
Oh,
so
she's right. She's right.
Here on the
He's right.
220, so they explicitly say that due to market conditions, they can incur this 120 million quicker. I don't know what happens to the rest of the 60 because they are unlike also like 50-20 structure. So it could also be 180. I just don't know if Palantir expected the stock to trade that high. So we will see. But essentially, they will incur this and it will impact net income. So I had a look at some EPS estimates for Q4. Now, typically, Wall Street, in terms of Palantir, they're pretty bearish from our point of view. Like they have very low growth targets for Palantir, profitability targets, but they have not revised down their EPS estimates, which means that they will likely miss EPS by something like 50%. And now, Palantir is currently in a world where they are executing on everything. Like they are just pumping out good news, and it's reflected in the stock. The stock is just going to the moon, right? And we've been talking about this for weeks. There's like nothing negative to talk about because they're doing a really good job. And I think a miss on EPS on a like minus 50% miss, I think that might be one of the catalysts that will potentially in the short term take the stock down. So that's what the video is about. Like I'm not trying to predict anything, but I think that Wall Street, this is public information. You can just open the report and see, okay, what kind of impact will this have? And Mariana did her homework. I'm sure a lot of analysts noticed that line as well. So it's no way that they don't know that Palantir will have a massive net income impact going into Q4.
So hold on. When you mean massive, why is it massive? Like, can you explain what makes it massive?
Well, because it's $120 million that they will incur as an expense. And I don't know what your net income targets are for Q4, but I made a quick, I don't have it now, I have deleted it, but I made some projections for Q4. I had something like 32% growth for the revenue year over year. I had them doing something like 23 or 24% net income margin on that. And like it slashed EPS from like 0.07 to 0.02, which
it would be like 56 million or 57 million or something of real net income after this expense, basically.
Yeah, so it will be a big hit. Now, Palantir can just go on the earnings call and explain, okay, we incurred this. We warned about it in Q3. No big deal. Business as usual moving forwards. The business isn't impacted. But at this point, I think just Wall Street is desperate to get onto something. And otherwise, I think they would have just revised down the EPS estimates because it makes no sense like this. So if they keep their estimates, Palantir will miss EPS pretty massively. So we'll see. I think that might be the catalyst to crash the stock, as we discussed last week.
Look, I uploaded the clip where we discussed about this dynamic a couple of days ago, and I received a comment that told like, "Oh, but Arnie, like this is publicly available information, so it is already priced in." And I would say, "How do you know it's really priced in? Like, how sure you are? Like, do you think this is really priced in, guys?"
Yeah, but the chat as well, and Matt, I want your take on this. Does anyone think this? If we assume Palantir is going to do 170 million of profits and there's 120 million expense, is that 50 million net income 3 cents of EPS versus 10 cents of EPS? Is that priced in? Matt, your thoughts on how you think the street would react?
Priced in as in, do we think that people are actually recognizing that that's not going to be there? Or
no, priced in as in the market knows they're going to do 3 cents instead of 10 cents, but they're okay because it's a expense that they know is coming.
I would say that people aren't anticipating it. I think that it's a kind of a nuanced thing that likely is something that will catch people by surprise. I mean, if you just go to Seeking Alpha really quickly, we can kind of look at what the earnings estimates are coming up for the annual quarter. The annual. And people are predicting that it's going to be 38 cents for fiscal year 2024. And I think that is probably demonstrating that people think that it's going to be more of like a 9 or 10 cent. In fact, actually, the consensus for 4Q specifically that I'm seeing here based off of 14 analysts is 11 cents with 776 million in revenue. Now, of course, that could always go down. And in fact, let me just kind of look at what people are kind of forecasting for this particular quarter. You got people in the 11s, 12s, 13s. So I don't think anybody is anticipating this GAAP net income impact that really is coming through, except maybe Mariana. But I don't see what her forecast is specifically on here. I'd have to look at hers.
So this is a good question right here. What if SARS are 120 million, Palantir buys back 120 million of stock? Isn't that a wash? It wouldn't be literally 120 million. They would have to buy back enough shares where the outstanding shares go down enough so that when you divide it by the net income, the EPS stays similar to the expectations. But that would be buying back a lot of shares.
No,
And I don't know
you incur the cost. It's not about the dilution, which also is a factor. It's not about the dilution. It's about the cost that Palantir will incur, the stock-based compensation expense related to that. So you can't just buy back the equivalent amount of shares and make it back to the net income.
Yeah, it won't. Exactly, it won't. So let's just paint the picture for everybody. Palantir several quarters ago granted from the board about $1 billion of potential buybacks. We've used about, I don't remember, 50, 60 million of that. So there's about 950 or so million left. But exactly what Amir said, it's coming out of a different budget, if that makes sense, right? So even though that you're going to have that dilution, even if you were to buy back all those shares, like Amir is saying, it's still going to hit the net income regardless of whether or not you buy back all that opportunity anyway. It's just going to impact, I guess, the future because no matter what, it's not good. So let me explain this as well. It's not going to impact non-GAAP income.
Right,
It'll only impact GAAP income. So there's a bunch of different ways and accounting things that you actually have to take into consideration for this. Yeah.
Arnie, any thoughts on how the street will react?
I personally agree with the idea that apart from Mariana, the few folks that actually read the report, like every single line of the report and not only what they wanted to read that was positive, and our chat here, I personally believe that nobody's really paying attention about it, because otherwise you would see like Seeking Alpha articles, you would see like all these guys that are just hinting how mad the valuation of Palantir is. Like now everybody is mad of the valuation. But again, the valuation is based typically on pricing metrics that are very linked to analyst expectations. But as of today, 99% of the analyst estimates were completely smashed, even the most optimistic ones. So I would never take for granted that these analyst expectations are anchored to the truth. So I believe that there will be an opportunity for when the results will come out, but we are still 2 months away from that. So like we will have doesn't make sense like to short Palantir now or sell all your stocks now because you think there will be this impact. Like that is another consideration. I think there could be like a massive opportunity if we know about this topic. We know that is a very impactful topic, even if like operatively speaking, like the company just keeps producing what it is doing, selling software and making great companies even better. But stock-wise, if we know this information, the market doesn't care, and we know it is an information that can impact the numbers, at least in the perception, there could be a deep opportunity for us. Now, no, nothing.
Ari Investor right here says, couldn't Palantir pre-announce to make everyone aware and soften the blow? They already did. They said it on the last earnings, gave a very basic corporate warning that, hey, there could be some upside to SBC. This might be the way that could happen. But they can't literally say, hey, guys, we're going to have this 120 million. You know, it's like this is something the analysts have to figure out.
Yeah.
I mean, they gave the hint. So if you made your job, you do homework, go read the stuff well.
And that's another thing is I think sometimes analysts intentionally forget some of these things. Or they just, like you stated, they might be covering too many things and they might not actually listen to a lot of what people are saying. So like a prime example is like the Celsius earning call I listened to. It actually showed sounded a pretty upbeat fourth quarter, but people were still hitting them very harshly in the third quarter earnings call. But can I allow me to ask if I can transition? I think it's still very on topic. So I guess my question is can I give a thesis as to why I think the price is absolutely running and why it's running to the extent that I think it is?
Please do.
So obviously this is probably wrong because I never am right. But the thought process that I kind of have behind this is, and Amit said this at the close earlier today, the retail investors are kind of refusing to sell their shares, right? And so that with that, you kind of have the scarcity. It's kind of like Bitcoin, right? Now that you have so many institutions coming into the market, there's so few supply. Obviously, in order to entice people to sell, you're going to need to raise the price. So I think one of the things is happening. You're starting to get that pendulum swing where institutions aren't just buying to get the price to go up, but if you think about the ultimate goal of what institutions are really trying to do, they're trying to get to a place where they can influence the company to the biggest of their ability. They're trying to get market share of that. That's why you see Vanguard, BlackRock, et cetera, get 9-10% positions in some of these public companies, and then they get positions on the board. They can help direct, because at the end of the day, if you have enough shareholders like BlackRock, et cetera, you have to meet with them. Your directors have to meet with them to figure out what they can tell to their sell side analysts, et cetera, in terms of expectations. So my thought process is they're basically trying to get to a place where they get the price to a point where they can start to get retail investors to sell out, get as much shares and institutional ownership as they can. And then eventually something's going to happen, right? The pendulum's going to start to swing back to normal. The price is going to drop out. The retail investors are going to run for the hills because they're afraid of locking in their gains. And then only then will the institutional investors be able to pick up more even at a decent price. So I think what's going to end up happening is at the end of the day, they recognize that they're not holding this for, let's just say, a short-term profit. BlackRock, Vanguard, et cetera, are going to be owning this company until it's $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion, potentially even $2 trillion company within the next 15 to 20 years. So who cares if they're paying for $150 billion, $170 billion market valuation? Because at the end of the day, they're still going to realize a 10x potentially in this particular company over the course of the next 15 to 20 years. And that's the way that I think a lot of these larger institutions are thinking about it. You'll have some of these hedge funds that are trying to get in, out, and sideways. But a lot of the times they might get lucky to get 1 to 2% ownership versus somebody like a BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Those guys are owning 5-10% chunks of the company. Those guys are really trying to get to a place where they can try to direct and get people to feed into specific things. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be a problem with Palantir, in my opinion, because at least at the moment, Teal, Karp, et cetera, have those Class F shares. And so it doesn't really matter what the fuck a BlackRock or anybody wants them to do, because at the end of the day, they have the final say. But I think you see this a lot and more often than you think if you start to recognize how companies start chirping up the same thing. They always talk about ESG at the same time. You know, back in 2020, 2021, everyone started chirping about DE&I and renewables and this, that, and the other. It's like not everybody, you know, is coming up with the same brilliant idea at the same time. They're either using the same consultants or have the same shareholders. So you have to recognize that that's where some of this chirping comes into. But I think that that's currently why I think the price is skyrocketing to where it is.
I think it's a very fair thesis. A lot of retail is not selling. I know some retail is taking profits, and that's obviously, you know, everyone deserves to at this point. But a lot of retail also has kept a base position that is not leaving. And if it was leaving, I don't think we would see the stock going this high. We're seeing the institutional volumes go up. We know that the institutional ownership went from 44 to 55%. S&P 500 was a big deal. QQQ looks like it's a lock-in for December 13th. There's an argument that, yeah, if you want to be part of Palantir, you're going to have to pay up. And that might not stop.
Well, it seems many people are doing something like how I'm doing, like having a core position that is considered like the no-touch position, and a smaller position that is like, okay, here I can be more active, have fun, buying the dip, selling the hype, stuff like that. And I made the question about, hey, what will make you sell? And like I received so many reply like, oh, I'm not ever thinking of selling until we reach like 100, we reach a trillion, stuff like that. So there is there is more propension to say, okay, I can wait, rather than I'm scared of I need to take the money out. I personally believe there is a simple dynamic. Like, do you remember it was a stream or here at Palantir Weekly that we just mentioned? Look, the demand for AI is explosive. There are not many stocks in the S&P 500 that can give you a pure AI software exposure. So guess what? You get all the money flows into your stock. You combine that with a very nice narrative, people that are making big gains that I think, oh, yes, it is up a lot, but we know that the true potential is actually way bigger. That's essentially what you get. And don't forget that even if now people are recognizing, oh, Palantir is very expensive, like when you see the valuation maps on like the revenue growth or the free cash flow margin combined with like the EV sales, so the rule of 40 chart, like now Palantir is like a complete outlier. So on a theory, that is like the perfect short candidate because it's like a complete outlier compared with the industry. But at the same time, short sellers must be as excited as scared because they know that in the recent past, every time that they tried to go against these the highly valued stocks with a lot of flows coming onto the stock, they just hurt themselves. Like every time you had bears pretending to be smart. Oh, Nvidia, 50 PE. Oh, that's crazy. Now I'll short it. But boom, they got smashed. So when even short sellers are scared to do their job, you just have a lot of money piling into the stock. Psychologically, people start thinking, oh, I'm up to 100%, but I want 2,000%. And then boom, this is what you get.
Damn, Narni, it's almost as if you knew a person who shorted Nvidia due to a PE a while ago. Amit, actually, could you quickly look at the Robinhood net flows for Palantir? Because look, everyone here is a greater market wizard than me. I typically ignore price action charts, anything outside of intrinsic valuation. However, if I had to guess, retail is probably a net outflow. I'm pretty like if I had to guess, that's what
I would have
say.
said net buyer.
It's interesting. So yesterday the stock fell, right? Or it was kind of flat yesterday. I mean, it's kind of 50-50. Right. December 4th, there was that red candle. December 3rd, there was that green candle.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically, I would say we're probably gonna see net outflows at these levels, while institutionals are racing, being late to the party. And a lot of people make fun of like, yeah, institutions are always late. They don't get it. They're racing when the stock price is up. But I think that's also evident if you look at the institutional ownership chart. I think they were at 14% going public, and now there's like 65 or whatever you showed on the chart earlier. In any case, that is more or less by design. You have to imagine being a portfolio manager. How do you justify to your clients like, yeah, we're owning this unprofitable tech stock. It's highly volatile. It has a ton of negative media attention. But we see the bigger picture. We see where this is going. Like, how do you make that case in 2021 to your clients? Like, you have a duty to like protect their money and grow their capital. How are you going to make such a bet? I think it makes sense that they are late to the party because now Palantir is obviously becoming very proven. They are very healthy, throw off tons of cash. They are ever expanding across many TAMs, playing a bigger role in US government. Like they're doing all of these things. And now they can feel like justified in saying, yeah, we own Palantir. So even though they get in like while the party is over in the short term, I still think Palantir has a big runway into the future. But for now, they are pretty late to the party. But yeah, I think that's not like them being stupid. I just think that it's very hard to justify to the clients. I think if you watch the Big Short, you have this moment where Michael Burry essentially does this bet while shorting the housing market, and all of his investors want to pull out. So he just locks it because, no, you guys are wrong. I am right. I am locking away your money. Most people don't go and do that. Like most fund managers can like, no, I'm locking your money. I am investing in Palantir. No, it makes absolute sense that they are always late because they can't justify getting into an unprofitable tech that is highly volatile, a lot of negative media. So that makes sense. And yeah, they will probably keep racing. I don't know where this ends up. I still think that retail will be smarter, and there will probably be net outflows from retail the coming periods, and probably retail will pick up the dip if there is one. So yeah, we'll see. I just think that's like explaining what's happening to the stock price. Now, of course, we have a lot of institutional ownership increases due to the S&P 500 inclusion. We'll see what happens if they are included in the NASDAQ as well. When's that supposed to be announced? Like in a couple of days, right?
December 13th.
Yeah. So next week. So there's a lot of things that is pushing the stock price higher, in addition to a lot of positive catalysts. But yeah, I think it's short-lived. We'll
I was
see.
going to say two things real quick then, Arnie. One thing also, if you listen to Michael Burry after his Big Short position, he made his investors $1 billion, and they never spoke to him again. If you listen to his interview, he says, I made $1 billion, and I sent them 20 million here, 30 million there. And the investors never talked to him again. They pulled all their money away. And this guy made them $1 billion, and they wanted nothing to do with him, right? Because of how he did the trade. So you are definitely correct that it is very difficult for fund managers to justify getting Palantir at $10. But at 75, it seems like a no-brainer now that the whole world is bought in. The other thing I was going to say to Matt's thesis is there are Tesla shareholders that have not sold since 2013, and they're retail guys, right? And if that's the world Palantir is going into, I know there's 2 billion shares outstanding, but those shares are locked up for a lifetime, right? And or at least a very long time, well into the future. And if that's the case, that's something we got to remember. Like if people genuinely believe, and this is why Alex Karp is so important. If you believe in the vision, that's why Elon is so important. You believe in that leader, you're able to deal with the 50, 60% drawdowns and still potentially be in the green because you got in so early, then those shares are not leaving. And if those shares are not leaving, to Matt's point, a lot of big guys are going to have to buy them at a higher price.
Yeah, price is going to have to go up to entice people to want to sell. Question, once again, pivoting the conversation. If Shyam leaves, would people be selling?
Okay, so this is.
I'll let you take it over, unless you want to keep talking about that.
Yeah, I'll set that up, and then Arnie, you can say what you were going to say, and then give your first comment on this. So Politico reported this week that Shyam Sankar might be picked to lead one of the highest research and development roles at the DoD. He would have to leave Palantir. Today he was on CNBC. He was asked about it. He said he's very happy at Palantir, but that was the extent of it. So I do think he's thinking about it. So Arnie, what were you going to say before we got into this, and then your thoughts on if Shyam would leave?
Well, we were talking about the implication for what is happening to the stock as investors. We can be hyped. We can be like thinking, oh, maybe the valuation is a bit high and so on. But have you asked yourself, like, what will be the implication for employees? Like, that will affect the way the company actually operates and how employees actually are motivated. Do you think there will be an impact here?
No, I don't think so. Because so Palantir just had an event. I was at the event. I was posting it on Twitter. It was their it's like a mini AIP con, and it was yesterday. And I was talking to a bunch of the employees, and I asked them, "What do you think about the stock?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's cool, and we're happy, but like now we got to keep working harder to justify, all the pressure and expectations that are put upon us." I mean, that genuinely, multiple employees told me that, right?
So there is no, oh, I got 1 million, 2 million. I
No.
can go to the beach.
I got none. I talked to at least 10 employees, and I wanted to, human to human. What do you think? The stock's up, and they're like, dude, it's awesome, but like, I'm just working harder.
Arnie,
And I don't think
where
they're
they're
saying
going
that.
again?
What do you say?
Arnie, can you say where they are going again?
To the beach.
Italian pronunciation, man.
Oh my god, dude.
Sorry. Okay, sorry to
That's
interrupt.
great.
I
That's
just had to hear it again. Go ahead.
That was a good
Arnie, sorry.
interruption.
Not be a
No,
beach.
look, it's also not Nvidia level money. Like Nvidia, is 3 trillion. There's some people there that have become like 100 millionaires or 10 millionaires, right? Not just like 100,000-aires or whatever. I think the majority of the Palantir employees, if you haven't been there for like the past 10 years, you may probably doing a couple 100,000, which is great, but it's not like after taxes. That's not life changing money, right? So I think Palantir's got a way to go before employees don't get motivated. All right, Arnie, your thoughts on Shyam Sankar potentially leaving?
That's something that I was personally not thinking it could happen until yesterday. These days, I would say I'm very I'm super happy Shyam to be here, but so as a shareholder, I would be sad if that happens. But realistically thinking, it would be a win-win scenario. If Shyam remains, he still has a very powerful position now because he was the one advocating the government, companies. Hey, we need to wake up. We need to have this sense of urgency. And now we see companies approaching that want to adhere to the mission of, okay, we need to reindustrialize the American base. We need to be ready for the worst, and we need to be as strong as ever so that we can maintain peace in the world. But let's say Shyam leaves to have this role, it would be still a positive impact for Palantir's business. We would not have the same level of high-level interviews that we now really appreciate of Shyam, but we know how Shyam thinks in terms of what are his priorities, and we know how well they fit into what Palantir tries to achieve. So seeing Shyam potentially being considered along with David Sachs, that knows Palantir relatively well because he was like an angel investor. We see Joe Lonsdale still gravitating into this constellation of people. Elon Musk appreciating Karp, sitting next to him, having a chit chat. It's like whoever goes there, we know is aligned with what Palantir tries to achieve, which is trying to wake up all the industrial companies and the government to, okay, guys, we need to get back to the origins of Silicon Valley. We need to get back to that spirit of innovation, and we can't let this monopsony of the legacy defense contractors making a weak country. So net effect, I consider it a net win, even if I would prefer Shyam to stay.
Yeah, and let me set up some context, and then Matt, I'm going to hand it to you. So David Sachs right here is chosen as the AI czar by Trump. Then you have this today, Anduril and Palantir partner to accelerate AI capabilities for national security. Essentially, the argument is that they're going to work together to have even more efficient defense procurement inside of the United States government. And then you also have Booz Allen Hamilton, which is one of the largest legacy software defense contractors for the government, working with Palantir to advance and accelerate U.S. national defense. So you got Booz Allen Hamilton, legacy defense contractor, Anduril, modern defense contractor, all working with Palantir. Then you have David Sachs, who is BFFs with Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir, like literally best friends, Stanford class of 1998 law school. And he's BFFs with JD Vance. Him and Kraft Ventures and JD Vance and Peter Thiel all work together. And we know publicly that David Sachs has a position in Palantir stock. He admitted it on the Olin podcast a couple months ago. All of that being said, Matt, what implications do you think that has on the government business? And if Shyam leaves, is that bullish or bearish to you? Oh, you're muted.
I've been thinking about this. I was thinking about this earlier. What would entice somebody to actually leave their company where they're actually doing extremely well, making potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, and actually give that up, right? And it gets me to think, like, why Trump did we do that even? Because he did have a, running $1 billion business. And then same thing with Shyam. That I think about Rex Tillerson back in the original Trump administration. He left Exxon to go. And it's like I just try to scratch my head, other than maybe a sense of higher purpose or something of the like. But I think Shyam might feel in control of where he's at right now. He has yet to get to a place where he thinks, and I'm speaking on his behalf. I don't actually know. This is my hypothesis. He said they're only 1% done. I believe that personally. I know what the software can do. I've used the software. I think that a lot of companies that even do get their hands on it haven't necessarily used it to its full ability. I've even seen that at UDoc, where we have yet to use it to its full capability. And we, for some reason, are holding back for God knows what reason. But going back to what you're also talking about with respect to all the linkages that we're seeing in Doge, the government efficiency project, and all these other folks that have been appointed, it's kind of seemed lined up from the get-go ever since kind of JD has gotten in there. I don't necessarily think it's, lubing the deal specifically for Palantir, right? I think this is good business. These guys know what they're doing, and it just happens to line up where Palantir has positioned themselves in the right place of being, America first and trying to help, America advance. I think it's a good thing with respect to the things that we're seeing. I think the fear is that I'm going to hopefully not see is people attack what is going on and all the contracts that Palantir is getting, and eventually they don't try to get some sort of monopoly rule or something like that due to how much business I anticipate Palantir will be getting, because we're starting to see it accelerate to an extent. And yes, we are seeing some other companies get AI contracts, like was it Big Bear that I just saw get one the other day? But even still, my fear is that you don't get into a situation where Palantir gets under a spotlight for trying to have like monopolistic sort of policies. But anyway, I know it was kind of a big ramble, but it is a big question. 2 questions, actually.
Amir, your thoughts on increased government growth and if Shyam leaving is bearish or bullish?
Yeah, all these endorsements from Zach, Elon, and so forth are really starting to pay dividends. Now, on a serious note, I think honestly, the 47th president of the United States is cooking with his staff. I mean, he's really changing stuff around, and for the better. Like, if you're an American, I'm very happy for you. As for Shyam, he would of course be a great addition to Trump's staff, but that of course comes with implications for Palantir. If he stays, I still think that the renewed focus over at the DoD especially, but also the government as a whole, in their new efficiency focus and actually starting to allocate capital where it matters. If you guys recall, Shyam has taken part along with other industry leaders in this Senate call. I think it's called the Senate. It's not Congress, right? Where he sits and gets questioned about his expertise.
Yeah, Senate.
And if you listen to those, Shyam did a really good interview in order to get that potential position, because he was easily the most clear and concise, focused guy on that panel. Every time he went on, he made a really good job. Okay, here is where America is losing. Here is where it's important to allocate capital. He's not only speaking as okay, this will benefit Palantir. When you listen to him, it's like Palantir's whole mission. They want to defend the West. They really care about America. And that really probably left an impact on a lot of people in that context. So I think he did a great job. I would be very sad to see him leave. But if he does, I still think it's a net positive for Palantir, because he knows which areas of the budget should go to. He's really focused, and we'll see. But as you mentioned, they have the Booz Allen Hamilton deal. They have the Shield UAV collab with Warp Speed that was just announced. Basically, betting on drones. And we know that Elon Musk has recently been tweeting a lot about like the Chinese drones, how the future of warfare is drones. So they have a collaboration with the Shield AI for that. As you mentioned, they have a collab with Anduril. Anduril also collabing with the OpenAI for anti-drone warfare. I mean, there's a lot of things happening now. In addition, like if we just look back like a month or two ago, they had the L3 Harris partnership, the AWS partnership. I mean, they have FedRAMP. Like things are starting to accelerate. I think the coming period will be very focused in terms of the DoD spending. I think they are really starting to allocate capital where it matters, which will be AI by and large. If we just go back to 2023, only 0.5% of the DoD budget went towards AI solutions. Palantir has a 25% market cap of that. Now, imagine if the DoD actually started to increase their spend to AI. Now, they have like an annual 2-3% increase in their budget every year. And if they also increasingly allocate more of that towards AI, and Palantir is a huge player there from the software side, I think government growth will really be explosive. And I've already modeled that in since like more than a year ago. So I've been looking at that dynamic for a while. And I think whatever happens with Shyam, I just think this new government will be so much more focused and actually start to accelerate Palantir in a whole new way. And it's needed. Like if you look at the world globally as a whole, there's a lot of uncertainties. So makes sense.
And it's not only about the increase in spending in AI. I think it is a lot into also how the government defense world could change if there is an actual push from above, accepting what Palantir and Anduril are trying to achieve, these contracts that are cost plus, that created these huge incentives just to work for the sake of working rather than pushing on innovation. If they can successfully lobby to make the new contracts fixed cost rather than cost plus, that would create a huge incentives, or should I say, like they should force the legacy contractors that rely on these kind of contracts to become efficient, very efficient. Otherwise, they would lose money. Like why Unreal can shine right now is because they are very efficient. They work to provide a solution with putting their own capital at risk. So they need to be efficient, while the existing legacy contractors, they are set to exploit the inefficiency of these processes. So if there's the new contracts, imagine like a $10 billion contract, but that is a fixed cost where you can't work just to get paid. You need to provide a solution. All these legacy contractors, which most of which are now becoming Palantir partners, Palantir clients, guess what? They also need to become more efficient. So probably they would need even more Palantir. And at the same time, also creating the conditions for the ecosystem to flourish. And we know that Palantir is trying to become that operating system layer that helps other companies operate with the government. So it's like literally perfect setting. Like in 20 years of Palantir, like the government side has never been not only this strong, but in the position where it can really capture a massive upside. And the beautiful stuff is, in terms of products, if you think with it, like all the products needed to make it happen are already there. And Palantir is keep building on top of these new products. So the opportunity here is massive, despite the government side seems the sleepy one. In reality, is as big as never.
The thing that I guess gets me concerned a little bit about is I've obviously thought of Shyam as the number 2 in line. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with Stephen Cohen becoming, say, CEO, but I just feel like that Shyam has had much more of a hands-on experience with the architecture of the company, not necessarily from the philosophical sort of culture aspect of things, although I think he does a good job of that. But it gets me to scratch my head that if Shyam goes, who's really the key and most likely number two? And do they have a large bench of folks? Because I'm just kind of looking through, who would potentially be there, and they really have a pretty small executive management team. They also have a very small board of directors. So you obviously have Karp, Stephen Cohen, who's also co-founder, president, secretary, director, Shyam, David Glazer, who's the CFO, treasurer, and then you have Ryan Taylor, who's the CRO, chief revenue officer, and then also the legal officer. So it kind of gets you to think. And then if you think about it, they kind of have only a few external external board members, and most of them have, I think, been brought on for strategic reasons. Like I forget the one woman from Accenture who did a lot of the work for a lot of Fortune 100 companies, and then there's a few others. But the majority of everything else, there's only 7 board members, if you believe it or not. And most of them are Palantir employees. So Karp, Stephen Cohen, Peter Thiel, another individual who was one of the early members in the early 2000s, but left. But he's kind of retained a role on the board since that 2005 timeframe, and then 3 external directors. So it's kind of sitting there like who would be the obvious number 2, and we don't necessarily have to dwell on that, but I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are.
What happened this week made me painfully more obvious of the risk we have of potentially losing Karp, and I hope Karp increases his security. I'm talking about what happened with United Health. That's obviously very, very tragic what happened.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Palantir in the public eye up until just like a year or two ago was up there as like the most evil business in the world. Like you had a lot of media outlets report that, and I think a lot of people still think that. So I'm very happy and grateful that nothing has happened to Karp. I hope it stays that way, and we have a lot more prosperous years under Karp. But it made me aware of the conversation. So you bring up a good point, and to most of us, Shyam was the obvious number 2 guy to step up. So if we were to lose him, that creates a bit of a void. There's no one really obvious for that role, and I don't think it's a problem of culture. I think Palantir, like the impression I get from the outside is that company culture is really like seeping through from Karp to everyone that works there. They all seem aligned with the not agenda, like the mission of making the West prosperous. I think all of that is like company wide, but someone to take on a leadership role, you make a good point. There's no one that really stands out as like the obvious candidate to me, especially not of the current C-suite. I would say like no one is that natural.
I don't think Karp's leaving. I
don't think he's leaving. I'm saying there's a risk considering what we witnessed this week. So I hope it doesn't come to that, and I hope we have a lot of more prosperous years. But yeah, as of right now, there's no one really obvious. Maybe what's the UK guy head called? I think he makes
Lewis mostly.
Yeah. I think someone like that is a better fit than someone like Ted Mowbray or they will have. There's no one obvious to me. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think I wasn't stating that in the thought that Karp would leave or anything like that, but I agree with Amir. I mean, if anybody were to be targeted, if we talk about how important Palantir has become in terms of the dependence upon the company as a main pivot point for our Department of Defense and all of our technologies. Think about the Ukraine war. Think about Russia already kind of sanctioning Karp, as we've already seen, and think about just what happened with Trump, right? And how his assassination attempt, many believe it was Iran. Some people thought it was an inside job. Who's to say that it's not going to be potentially something similar with Karp, right? And not only that, but things happen. Steve Jobs, I'm assuming, didn't anticipate getting cancer and unfortunately passing away either. And so I wish Karp a very healthy, long life, and I would love to see him running around and cursing and pounding on tables as a as the CEO in his 70s, but you just never know, right? Something could drastically happen where, something happens, and unfortunately he has to step down.
Then this is a dark topic. Come on, Arnie, wrap it up quickly so we can move on to something fun. It's effed up conversation to have.
No, well, I would prefer avoid saying Karp leaving before someone gets mad.
Yeah. Look, so I mean, I think Karp is Palantir. I think a lot of us invested because of Karp, and he eats, sleeps, and breeds Palantir. He doesn't have a wife and kids. This is his life, and so I think he's going to be here for a long time. One quick thing I wanted to show: this video of David Sachs actually talking about Palantir. For those that have never seen it, here's one of the now most influential guys in the world talking about Palantir.
Like in 5 or 10 years, so I don't want to discount the possibility that there will be some disruption of existing players, but I think on the whole, there's more net new opportunity. For example, the most highly valued public software company right now in terms of ARR multiple is Palantir. And I think that's largely because the market perceives Palantir as having a big AI opportunity. What is Palantir's approach? The first thing Palantir does when they go into a customer is they integrate with all of its systems. And they're dealing with the largest enterprises. They're dealing with the government, the Pentagon, Department of Defense. The first thing they do is go in and integrate with all of these legacy systems, and they collect all of the data in one place. They call it creating a digital twin. And once all the data is in one place with the right permissions and safeguards, now analysts can start working it. And that was their historical value proposition. But in addition, AI can now start working that problem. So anything that the analysts could work, now AI is going to be able to work. And so they're in an ideal position to master these new AI workflows. So what is the point I'm making? It's just that you can't just throw an LLM at these large enterprises. You have to go in there and integrate with the existing systems. It's not about ripping out the existing systems, because that's just a lot of headaches that nobody needs. It's generally an easier approach just to collect
except when the renewal comes. What happens when you have to?
So again, that's Sachs basically speaking the language of why the ontology is important, and now he's advising Trump on AI policy. And then here's Karp for 1 minute talking on Fox Business yesterday about Palantir.
Palantir exists to serve this nation. And I mean, we need to know what's working and what's not. And I think that's great for the nation and probably pretty good for Palantir too. Software, especially software that's productized, is enormously efficient. The underlying economics of software is both sides get more. I build a product no one else can build. I sell it to you at a fraction of the cost of building it. I'm happy because I can sell that product everywhere. You're happy because you could never build that. And honestly, if you had $1 billion, you couldn't build it, but you might think you're going to get $1 billion and build it. And of course, that doesn't work. Efficiency will not only make everything cheaper. Transparency will not only be cheaper. It will be, the output will be better. And again, the primary basis of the U.S. economy right now is tech. The primary lesson of tech is you get the right people and you spend less. And you get massive output. And so like all these things that are likely to happen by looking at transparency they're going to lead to increases in transparency. And by the way, increases in lethality.
And Karp also said that he's a big fan of Doge, and he thinks that Elon is the right guy to do it.
He speaks as if it's inevitable that the government will use technology to drive efficiency. Don't you get also that impression? Like he knows.
I get the impression that he knows JD Vance is about to start cooking up. I mean, you saw his smile when he says, and I think that's pretty good for Palantir too. I think he knows the next 4 years is going to be fun for government growth.
I think where we've seen ourselves become vulnerable, and I think a lot of people have started to see this, is over the past 4 years, we've kind of deglobalized as a world, right? I mean, you used to have so much people wanting to be. I mean, I used to be able to go to Russia. Right now, I probably need some sort of visa or something, or like a special reason to be able to go to Russia. So, and then you start to see the BRIC nations really starting to team up and say, hey, we're going to create our own currency and things alike. So I think it's really became glaringly obvious that the world and our defense is, with respect to the United States and the technologies and software, probably is under behind the times by 10, 20, 30 years. Probably not to the extent that we see Russia, when we saw some of the Putin, old computers and stuff like that, when there was like the interviews going on during the beginning of the Ukraine war about 2 years ago. But I think people are starting to recognize, oh shit, like this is completely different than any sort of warfare we've been involved in before, and it's really time to step our game up. Sorry, Arnie, you were going to say something.
I don't think Arnie was going to say anything. No.
You know, we have this saying among us, me, Arnie, that when Karp speaks, you should probably take it very seriously, because essentially Karp has been saying this for like 10 years. Like if you go back to his earliest like in interviews, even like after going public, like right away, he's essentially been forecasting exactly what has been going on the past couple of years. Like he's been correct every single time. So I don't think this comes as a surprise to him. I think he saw the trajectory. It was very obvious to him, and probably for a lot of people at Palantir. And he's probably very happy that it's starting to play out now. Like if you just recall, like even like on CNBC, when the anchor asked him like, okay, but what do you say to the analyst for the poor stock performance like 2 years ago? He's like, well, I know what they're gonna say in 2 years, so why should I care now? 2 years later, like look where Palantir stock is. Like
Literally 2 years.
Yeah.
But this is why, again, this is why Karp is so damn important. He's the reason I invested in those early days when I knew nothing about the company. I really care about communication. My job is content creation. Like I really care about how do you get people's attention and then communicate in a way that gets them to actually care about your ideas. And when you listen to Karp, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you know about Palantir or not. You listen. Like even if you don't understand what he's saying, you listen. And to have someone leading his energy alone is worth $150 billion to me. Like forget it's just that energy is exciting. By the way, Karp will be live. I'll put the link in the chat at 10:45 a.m. tomorrow at the Reagan National Defense Forum. And if you guys remember last year, he went viral at the Reagan National Defense Forum just because of his, mic drop moment. So he'll be live tomorrow as well. But I agree with you, Amir. His energy is important, and he kind of has a knack for seeing the future as well.
And just a little note, Palantir will be the main sponsor of this Reagan Forum, which is, I don't know if it is the main, but certainly it is one of the main events in the government space. So
yeah,
it's so important. And he's been like, do you remember like one of the earliest weeklies where we were like, how can this small $10 billion company, like $15 billion company, have such a global presence and influence? Like Palantir, Karp has been doing like all these forums globally, sitting at the most important meetings and tables and discussions and panels, and Palantir is like $15 billion sitting right next to like $1 trillion companies. He has like a lot of influence. So I think it's all starting to play out. And yeah, I'm really looking for. But weren't they like the sole diamond partner last year as well? Sorry, I'm not gonna. Just one point. What I was gonna say is, Palantir is really doing poorly in Europe. I think Europe is in distress. I think they're forecasted to grow GDP at like 0%, like Europe-wide. I think they're in huge trouble. Palantir has since going public saying Europe does not want to participate in this AI revolution. We're seeing that. Palantir has been having negative growth in Europe for like 3 quarters now. Like it's really bad. So I think Karp being present there and like making a point, and US leading the way in efficiency and actually allocating capital where it matters, it has a lot of impact and implications for the Europe market as well. And for example, NATO spending, like there's a lot of things happening now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, again, Palantir was worth, I think, maybe 40 billion or 30 billion at the Reagan National Defense Forum last year. Now they're the largest defense contractor in the world at 174 billion. And so I think, Karp has become a celebrity. He's probably going to be a celebrity at the event tomorrow. People are going to want to get his ideas, his thoughts, all that stuff. Even the Booz Allen Hamilton CEO said he met Karp last year at this conference. And a year later, you have a partnership. That only happens when someone can talk to you for an hour and you can, get the charm of them and you want to work with them. And that's just special. It's not replaceable. and it's obviously worth a lot of money to shareholders as well.
I mean, the simple observation is when you have something to sell, as there is the Palantir case, when you have a big explosion into the visibility, everybody wants to talk with you. Guess what? That becomes a direct sales opportunity.
Yeah, there you go. All right, thank you everybody. Awesome show today. We will be back. Might not be able to do next Friday because I'm going to be gone. We'll see.
Oh, hot take.
No, it's actually a Palantir thing. I'm going to be at the Army Navy game. So
that's awesome. Question: are you streaming tomorrow the Reagan National?
I don't. It's at 10:45. It might be a little too early for me.
That's fine.
But if you want to stream it, if you want to announce you're streaming it now, then yeah, everyone.
Yeah,
Money.
I wouldn't mind if anybody wants to join Arnie. Amir, you're more than welcome.
All right, so Matt Money's YouTube, I'm putting in the chat. If you are not subscribed,
you got a brunch or something, or
no? Dude, I haven't slept all week.
I know. Trust me, Saturdays I'm like a sloth. I like get out of bed at like noon, so I hear you.
For people that don't watch your lives religiously, or maybe they tune in and tune out, can you tell us how it was like meeting Karp for the fourth time? I'm really interested in hearing that. And for the record, Amit is now compromised. He's way too biased. Like he's bought by Palantir to be their propaganda spokesperson. Like everything he says, just disregard it. Like obviously, there's no credibility left. He's going to these army games. He's going to every Palantir event. He gets merch. Like what the hell? Like.
Okay, so first of all, that's Matt's link. 10:45 tomorrow. He'll be live Eastern Standard, 9:45 Central, and Karp will be speaking at the Reagan Forum. So if you don't want to go to the Reagan stream, you can go to Matt Money stream. It'll be easy to watch there. Yeah, Palantir had their pre-event, so no one knew this was happening. And I didn't know who would really be at the event. I just knew there was like doing a mini AIP con. People can go on my Twitter. It's in the description to look at all the photos. I posted it all week and all the videos. Palantir is going to be dropping all the videos on YouTube soon. And Karp was there. Got to see him again. It was pretty cool. I will say that he was the most upbeat I've ever seen him. I mean, I've been blessed to meet him 4 times this year. Arnie and I met him for the first time ever in DC in May. And yeah, it was pretty cool. I was just talking with someone in the corner, and I knew he was here because I looked over and I saw him, but he was about 30 feet away. I didn't want to go up to him, and be like, hey, I just this busy guy. I don't want to be that guy, so I'm just chilling. And then he catches me across the room and he's like, Amit. And I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And he's like, you're here. Now the party can start. Yeah. And when he said that, I was just like, he was like, you're here. The party can start now. And he was just really excited. He was really happy. And, I just said to Karp, I've been making videos since, 2021. I was in my room, just like talking about your stock, your company, your values, your philosophy. And he was like, I know you have, it was just really cool. It was really, really cool because he appreciates it a lot. He really gives a fuck about retail shareholders, man. He really, really cares. I put out this tweet today, and this tweet was partly inspired by the conversation I had with Karp yesterday, which was that regular people made money off this stock. Nurses, policemen, people with 9-to-5s, all of us. I would say we're all pretty regular. We're special in our own ways, but we're not crazy celebrities, crazy investors. And we've been able to make money on this. And now fund managers who have to invest at 75 because we invested at 7. And I think that gives Karp so much joy. Like more than anything, I think that gives him so much joy because he just loves the idea of being contrarian against this spreadsheet army of people that have no creativity to look beyond their spreadsheet versus a company that is defending the West. And that's something real. And we all got it 2 years ago. And so he was happy. He was the most upbeat ever. Obviously, the stock is at $70. Why wouldn't you be happy? You're running one of the most, expensive and interesting companies in the world from a valuation perspective, and no one thinks it's going down anytime soon, and people just keep buying it up. So I think he's really happy. I think he was really excited. Notice on the Fox Business interview, I got to speak with him right before he went to that interview. He wasn't really pumping the stock on that interview either. And we've seen interviews where he talks up the stock, talks up about valuation, talks up analysts. That interview, he was really chill, laid back, talked about, how they're doing, but he wasn't in the position where he needed to feel like he had to prove the concept of the stock because it's obviously proving itself. And I think that's the vibe we're going to keep.
Yeah, I have to ask you just shortly. Sorry to keep everyone here. Just quickly. Historically, Karp has gone on to media, and I think it's the same like CNBC interview that we mentioned earlier. He says, "I didn't feel that good at 35. I don't feel that bad at 7." Do you think that he feels that 75 is justified? Like, if you had to
No,
guess, like
no.
why this? No.
If I had to guess, I would say him and the entire company has no idea. Because again, I talked to multiple employees and they're like, dude, we don't get it. Like, we're not complaining, but we don't get it either. Like, obviously, no one, they expected this probably in 2030, not, here. So
Well,
I don't think
SARS-
anyone,
The SARS,
I don't think anyone expects it, but I think he's embracing the moment because he's like, all right, like, I'm not going to complain about it, but I'm also not going to, cry about it either.
Yeah, and
What were
Arnie
you
is
gonna say,
about to
Arnie?
make a great point here, because I was gonna say the same, but I will let Arnie say the point.
we can do it together in synchro. Well, the fact that the SARS were expected, like they were given with a maturity of like 5 years up to 2029,
Yeah.
is a hint that that's probably what the company was expecting to achieve. Like since when they were released, I remember I made the post explaining the SARS, and I made the calculation. Okay, essentially the company is expecting more or less to get like a 30% compound to get there, and they put these targets so that the company needs to grow revenue more than 30% or expanding margins a lot. And the fact that we achieved that goal, which was expected to be ambitious, like if you're the management and you put a price, like a reward, you don't put an easy reward because you want to motivate people. And essentially, the target that was expected to be achieved, like in let's say 2007 to 27, 29, it was achieved in 1 year. So that gives a sense of how fast the stock moved. But at the other end, now there is a massive opportunity because with this price movement, the reputation, at least like people know that Palantir is a big thing, and they can go look into the financials. It's like, okay, maybe the valuation is expensive right now, but wow, like what numbers, so cool, like so important mission, so big achievement with clients. You know what? Let's get a call with these guys. So this is one of those dynamics where the sentiment, like the illusion of the stock price, Palantir being perceived as a wow, this is a very cool company, actually becomes the reality of oh, let's get a call with these guys. I had a prejudice that this was a crap company, a crap consultancy. I'm now proven wrong. Let's get a call. So imagine like the more interviews now that happen associated with this very positive image that the company has, this transforms into business value. Like the connection I got is imagine how important it was during COVID, the fact that the Tesla stock rising made retail investors and all the investors even more excited about the company. They became even stronger advocates for the company. They purchased their Tesla. They wanted to show off their Tesla. They were proud, and that created like a feedback loop that created the massive performance and made the Tesla what it is right now today.
Mm-hmm. And I think to go back to what you were talking about, Amit, I don't necessarily think it's the $75, $77 price tag that really has Karp going. I think it has a lot to do with if anybody's ever tried to lead something and had everybody seemingly against you, you can feel how dark and tense it feels. To the point where obviously he was pounding on tables, right? He didn't necessarily feel like he had the support of Wall Street. He didn't feel like he had the support of many folks, except for maybe the folks that were sitting to the right or left of him at the company. And so, being a lone wolf, being looked down upon and people not necessarily thinking that your company is worthwhile, very much to a lot of the points that Arnie just said, to now being kind of treasured and people recognizing how important you are in terms of your alignment with American prosperity and where you want the world to go in terms of efficiency and making things better for not only the government, but also everyday companies and also citizens of the United States. Getting that now to feed through and be a part of the government and be part of what people actually want is probably feeling really good, right? And that shows up in the stock price, right? At the end of the day, if the company wasn't doing well, except for, sometimes we've seen in 2021, sometimes the company doesn't need to be doing anything, and the stock price runs. But, it just goes to show the pendulum has swung, and I'm sure riding that to basically being looked at as like some sort of spy company that nobody cares about and wants you dead, to now, helping lead the forward charge of America in the next 4 years under this new administration. I feel like it has to feel really good.
Yeah. And, to Arnie's point and to your point, Matt, momentum creates momentum. And when everyone is obsessed about Palantir, from an investor perspective, that gets more investors into Palantir, but also from a client perspective, I would imagine there's thousands of customers across the world that are now thinking, hey, maybe we should call up Palantir and see if there's anything they can do for our business, just by the very nature of the stock and the company and Karp being in headlines. I mean, it's kind of like, all press is good press to an extent. And I think a lot more people are getting more interested in this story. And again, from the conversation I had with him yesterday and from the conversation I had with employees, they're all still very focused on building this to become really big. I think Shyam even said this today, that they're barely getting started. They're a $170 billion company and they're barely getting started. And when you have that level of excitement from management, which it was the energy I was feeling in the room yesterday from everyone I talked to, yes, the stock can be volatile, but it does seem like the company is a long way to go. And the story really is just getting started.
I mean, even the bear post on X at this point make intrinsically Palantir more valuable.
Yeah, the bears on X that have been complaining since 60, and it's not wrong to be bearish. It's just, a lot of them are doing it for views and clicks to try to fearmonger and stuff like that. Even their posts aren't that effective anymore. It's like they look like clowns now.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Since
like
60, I would say it's a lot earlier than
well,
60.
at 60, they really started saying it's a bubble, it's a bubble, it's a bubble. Now it's 75. And here's the thing I want to end on. If Palantir were to go back to 50, would anyone here in this chat, anyone watching, blame Alex Karp, blame Shyam, say that, the company's not executing leadership? No, because we all know that like 75 is a stretch. I mean, Arnie said 2029 was the SARS target for 70. That means the company didn't think they would get to 70 till 2029. We're at 77 and it's December 7th, 2024.
I'd blame you, Amit.
Yeah, you can blame.
Let's blame Amit.
But everyone would buy that dip. No one would complain. Most of retail's average is at, I would say, at least below 30 if you've been in this for a couple of years. And so you would kind of be like, all right, I got a great opportunity to buy more. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla went from 400 to 100. A lot of the Tesla OGs are like, well, my average is 20. I'm going to average up right here. And now Tesla's back at almost 400, right? So
I don't know if am I lagging?
No, you're good. You're good.
I like the feed is cutting in and out, but yeah, you're welcome, everyone. I gave you 15 more minutes of content by just yapping, not letting Amit end this. But yeah, if it goes to 50, I don't think anyone would blame Karp. Actually, I would be very excited to purchase a lot of stock at 50. That's just around the fair intrinsic value for me as of the Q3 report. We will see where that ends up with the Q4 report. But yeah, 50 is where I think Palantir should trade. I think it's fair, even like accounting for some premium. So yeah, I would be very happy if that were to happen. And enjoy your call to all the bears. Like, I just think it's so funny. Like, as you mentioned, like at 60, the bears really started to like pound on the big drums, like posting the intelligent investors into the dustbin memes and stuff like that. And then it went to like 65, 70, 75. Like I just wanted to hit 80. Like, what's their ammunition gonna be that they didn't use at 60? Because as we mentioned, they have nothing really to say about the business. It's all about, well, the PE doesn't make sense. Like, they have nothing to tell you about the business. So it's not actually being a bear. They're just like, yeah, the pricing doesn't make sense. And I think we all, like, even Palantir bulls agree, like, yeah, the pricing does not make sense. So we're aligned there. But yeah, the clickbaiting, like, it's been the same since like 40. I would say like 40, 45, 50, 55, 60 started to really go off. And it's all the same argument, like P that doesn't make sense. Yeah, sure. You didn't get it at 40. Now it's like about to be 80, like double from where you said the bubble started. So yeah, it's all very interesting.
Well, for instance, this is Buco Capital, 100K account, specific on tech. Madness about the Palantir's multiple of 50, almost 50 sales, because then there is Jamin Ball, like a partner of Altimeter Capital. Oh, but now he's above 50x. So it's like
Well, that partner at Altimeter Capital, Jamin Ball, I was gonna make a good joke. I'm not gonna do it, but they are so heavily. They are so heavily. The Jamin Ball is balls deep into Snowflake, and that's why he's upset right now. That Palantir is. Sorry, I had to do it. But no, Altimeter has been so bullish Snowflake and so bearish Palantir that obviously they're pretty upset about this, and I think this is funny because
the super experts in SaaS. So it's like.
Well, that's the funny. They are the super experts in SaaS. They totally missed Palantir. They're not going to buy in. There's no way in hell Brad Gerstner is going to buy Palantir at this valuation. Even if it goes to 45, they wouldn't buy in. So they're never going to buy in. And then the question is, okay, so is Snowflake going to outperform Palantir next decade? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Maybe you noticed, but I always put a like to this bear post, and I encourage you to do the same, because I think that helps these guys get even more triggered.
Yeah, you wrote like just short it, and I've seen you spam that on X to a lot of posts. Like, okay, it's the biggest bubble. Why don't you short it? Like,
well, that's the problem. Everyone wants to call it the biggest bubble for clicks. No one wants to put their money where their mouth is. Like, if it's the biggest bubble ever, it's the easiest short of all time. But they won't do it because it's obviously not the biggest bubble.
We are pretty close to doing something amazing. We are at 71 times price to sales as of the close, 385 times price to earnings. I kind of want to see like 500 PE and 100 times price to sales. I don't think that has happened in modern history to any S&P 500 company. I think Palantir would break records if they were to trade at, like, for a company bigger than $100 billion of market cap. I don't think it's ever happened that a company trades at 100 times sales. Like, even during like the Nasdaq.com bubble, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but above $100 billion, I don't think it's ever happened. So I kind of want this 76. No, sorry, the 71 times price to sales to go to 100, and I want PE to be above 500. I think that would make for a great picture.
Maybe Rivian, just because it had no revenues.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, last thing we want to do before we end it out, and we never do this. I personally never do this because I'm not sponsored. I don't do promotions or anything like that. But I do want to give a little promotion to our boy right here, Mr. Amir, who, even though we shit on spreadsheets, has built his own custom spreadsheet. The price is a bit expensive, $249, but this is for the valuation nerds who want to purchase a model. This is actually relatively undervalued for these financial sheets. Amir, I'll let you pitch it right here because this is a product coming from you. You've contributed a lot to the community. You're not doing this for the money, but it does take a lot of time to build this. So go ahead and give the pitch on what you built here.
Okay, look, so yeah, a lot of people have been asking me for my Excel sheet ever since I started doing YouTube content, and even like during the Palantir. So I took like 10-20 hours to clean it up and make it look really professional. And if you are, this is not for 99% of you. Just ignore this. You can stop the video now. Like, this is not for you. But for that 1% that really knows how long it takes to compile all of the company filings into one Excel sheet, calculate all the KPIs, make all the charts. Like, Arnie, how long do you think it would take to make an equivalent like Excel sheet? Like, well, I think Arnie would understand why it's priced the way it is. So how long would you say it should take?
Well, I've done that kind of work starting since before the DPO, and I really wished there could be like the count as if you were playing a Pokemon that told you like the number of hours you actually played, because I think I reached more than 1,000 hours along these 4 years. So I know the pain. I know how intricate, like how complex it is, even if it is just like already just putting the numbers there, but then also thinking, okay, how can re-elaborate these raw numbers into some metrics that actually can help me understand the dynamic. And if we were able to do well with Palantir when stuff were shitty, and we were discussing here at Palantir Weekly, was not only because of the qualitative aspects, but there was a lot of quantitative aspects that was analyzed thanks to this kind of models. So I'm super happy for Emir to got to
Amir,
hold on,
Amir, where's the video where you speed up you typing in the metrics?
Yeah, I deleted it. So I
Why?
spent like something like I just said I compiled all the stock option stuff. That was probably like 10-15 hours. Just that.
So let me describe the
segment.
video because I caught it before you deleted it. But Amir basically live streamed or recorded 10-15 hours of him putting the numbers from the SEC filings into his spreadsheet, and then he sped it up to 4 minutes, and it was insanity, bro. It was like I was watching that, like, dude, I would get one number wrong and I'd throw my computer away. Like, I'd be so annoyed at doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, okay. So what this is essentially, it's just a consolidated resource for people where you have all the data from the business even before they went public. Every number of importance since they went public, it's compiled in the sheet. It's categorized for you. I made charts of everything. I have calculated KPI. So you have, it's just a resource for doing analysis without you having to spend 200, 300, 400, 500 hours doing it yourself, because that's how long it takes. And you can't do it with AI. Like, the only equivalent is an institutional service that is $10,000 per year. So I think like I priced it at 500, and now it's like on Black Friday sale for 250. I just didn't remove the Black Friday deal. And actually, I was surprised. I think 5 people have bought it to now. I was like, I'm just gonna put it out there. If
I think I'll just say this live, and I think people agree. If you did lower it to 50, and it's up to you, I think you would get a lot of people buying it. And maybe that's the strategy versus 250. But again, it's really hard to build. So this is for the 1% of people that really want those numbers. 99% of people probably don't care about it. So.
Previously, while you were talking, I was showing like my Excel, which is very similar, and it took me like literally ages to do this, because all the blue numbers that you see are put with hands, like searching the number, putting the number, and as Emir said, there is no real AI that can do all of these accurately, and connecting then also with like good pricing, like all the financial metrics that help you understand. So it is really true that if you want to quantify like how it is like the actual value of something like this, we are already talking in the thousands, not in the hundreds.
It is worth many, many thousands. Obviously, you know, regular people on YouTube don't have that much money to pay for this stuff, but it is a lot of value in this. And again, this is a product from the community. This is Amir didn't ask me to do this. This is I know how hard he's worked for this. And so if anyone's interested, typefcapital.com, which, by the way, that's your new brand, Type F Capital, right? That's like,
yeah, it's the firm name. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's essentially, it's nothing like really serious. It's more or less, I need somewhere to file away like taxes, so I just started my own firm. It's nothing special. It looks kind of professional. You're like, yeah, Type F Capital, man. So it's a real thing. It's a real firm. We'll see how we scale it, but yeah, I still have a day job and stuff like that. But yeah, appreciate that, Amit. You didn't have to do that. And as I mentioned, 99% of you just closed the video already. This is not for you. This is like for that 1% that really wants to analyze and dig deep into the numbers. I've consolidated research. Like, I would pay a lot for that kind of research, because, you know, people ask me like, Emir, what do you think about Hood? What do you think about NVIDIA? I'm like, I have to spend at least 100 hours compiling all the data before I can even start to analyze a business. Like, I can't just go like look at some PE, price to sales, and tell you, okay, this is my opinion. I have to do like all the work, and sometimes, and a lot of times, it's just wasted. Like, I spent 120 hours compiling this data and analyzing a business, and I'm not interested in it. Well, move on. That's just the way I chose to invest. And yeah, can be a real time sync. So yeah, it's available if you're interested, and I will keep developing it. You get quarterly updates.
Yeah,
whenever I add
basically,
new
basically every earnings it gets better and better, essentially.
Yeah, and when I add like sections, like yesterday, I did all this work as Amit mentioned. I made like a time lapse, but the audio was kind of bad, so I deleted the video. Where I just like, okay, I'm just gonna record myself, sit for hours, and do this, and then I'm just gonna mail it out like an updated sheet. So there are updates, and yeah, shout out to the 5 people who wanted to buy it. Shout out to you. Yeah, sorry, I'm not a good salesman. I'm not gonna pitch
I
it
know you're
ever.
not. That's why I didn't.
I
show you how to do
don't
this. I
pitch
know
it
you're
on
not.
my channel like ever, and I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, it's available. So thank you, people, for listening to this.
There you go. All right. Yeah, I don't have the patience to do that, dude. I don't have the patience to sit there and type in all those numbers. I think you need to upload that video so people can see how much work you put in, because that's I was having anxiety watching that. I was like, I can't do this, dude. This is too much.
This is literally what analysts do. Like navigating through their spreadsheet is what they do a big amount of the hours every day.
Yeah. All right, folks. That's it for us. Thank you, everybody. Matt Money will be streaming live at 10:45. It'll probably be maybe 10:30. Start 10-15 minutes earlier. His YouTube channel, again, putting right here in the chat. Karp will be at the Reagan National Defense Forum tomorrow. He will probably drop the mic. Everyone is going to be listening to him on that panel. Make no mistake about it. People are going to care about what Karp has to say. World's most valuable defense contractor. So make sure to check him out tomorrow at 10:45 a.m. All right. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week on Palantir Weekly. Bye, everyone.